This episode may contain stories of emotional, physical, and mental abuse as we are giving you a look at what somatic experiencing work looks like. If you or someone you know is struggling or in crisis, help is available. Call or text 988 or chat 988lifeline.org. Welcome to the It's Your Story to Tell podcast, where brave people share how they overcome tough times to inspire others in what's possible. I'm your host, Megan Babcock. I'm also the founder of It's Your Story to Tell community and the Coach Collective. I am here today for part 3 with Tiffany, who's a nurse coach. And you guys, she has just brought so much wonderful information about how we can move through where we're stuck, overwhelmed, we're anxious, and using those triggers in our body to get curious. And today we are going to talk about how to use somatic experience work to help you walk through these difficult things so that you can feel good and enjoy the life that you were created to live, the one that you've been dreaming of, desiring, thinking is maybe not possible. Tiffany and I are examples of people who have done this work and have overcome. And while life is still hard at times and it is never perfect, we have a different level of capacity to be able to face these things, recognize when we become dysregulated, we're able to get curious about it, and then that allows us to more consciously make decisions so we're not repeating these unhealthy patterns and habits that keep us stuck and overwhelmed. So, Tiffany, thank you so much for being here with me for part 3 of this series. And I am really excited to be a participant and see what it is that you do in the work that you do as a nurse coach with the clients that you're working with. So I'm gonna just let you go and see how this all plays
Yeah,
out.
I love it. I love it. And I'm excited to see, just what shows up. And the cool thing is it's so different for every individual, right? It's really just following the lead of what it is that you need support in. And every person that's going to look different. But one of the big things that I really love to start with all of my clients is just allowing ourselves to just orient to the room, right? To get ourselves really grounded, to notice something around our space that like brings us some joy. Because when we are working with the nervous system, when we're talking about things, we're receiving coaching, oftentimes it's something that we're needing support with, right? And we're like, I can't see this option, these choices. I'm feeling very closed in. My blinders are up. And so the reason why it's so important to start with something like orienting or a grounding practice is so we can allow ourselves to become open, right? We can start to get familiar with what's showing up in the body. So often for so long we've walked around not knowing. And so it's really this amazing practice to just start to get familiar. So if it sounds good, then I would say we can kind of start there. Does that sound okay for you?
Perfect. Sounds
Amazing.
great.
Yeah. So what we will do is, and you guys can follow along if you're listening, this is something you can kind of do with us, is just, yeah, just start to kind of feel the body, maybe just noticing those feet on the ground. If you are sitting in a chair, feeling that chair beneath you. Yeah, I see that you shifted a little, and that is amazing. And I want you to just allow yourselves to open your eyes and just to begin to scan your room. So, starting at just one side of your room and just slowly letting yourself move to the other side. Just looking for something that feels pleasant to look at. seeing where your eyes get drawn to. When you find that thing, just let me know and we'll kind of go
Mhm.
from there.
So I have a dream board that's
Ooh,
in front of me.
amazing. Okay. So tell me, is there something in particular on the dream board that your eyes are being drawn towards, or is it the whole board in general? Hmm.
I'm really drawn to, I have pictures of kind of one of the things that I love to do, and that's just travel. But
Okay.
particularly, I love the beach. So I have a lot of, you know, like
Yeah.
relaxing, being at the beach.
Amazing. Yeah. So let's just kind of look at that for a moment and just see, yeah, see what happens. This is where we get a little bit curious of like, yeah, what do you even notice in your own body, right? As you begin to just become a little bit more connected with these images of the beach and travel and just recognizing this is something that you find that you really love to do.
So I think what's coming up for me right now is that there hasn't been a lot of that in the past
Mm,
year,
yeah.
because I've been growing a business, but I've also been going through some uh, hard stuff um, with a kiddo. And so we actually had to cancel a really big trip um, back in May. And so it's been a lot longer. We normally do a lot more traveling. And so I am really like longing for that and realizing like
Mm,
I need the break. I think that's what I'm
yeah.
like drawn to, like needing a place
Yeah.
to just like totally unplug and relax.
Yeah. And I saw you kind of like release a little bit of a breath. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, so let's kind of just look back at that picture for a moment, or even like a memory that you've experienced, right? You're like, I'm doing all these things and I'm having this recognition, looking at this board, at these images that I'm kind of longing to experience that again. And so, yeah, this is where I'm gonna have you just scan the body and just see like, yeah, what is showing up internally right now? Sometimes we'll notice colors, we'll notice images, or maybe it's just a sensation that becomes present. There's no right or wrong. This is really where we just get a little bit curious of what's showing up.
I think, I've done a lot of work on the grounding part. So, like, I don't
Yeah.
feel what I used to feel because I used to get
Mm,
really, like, if I started thinking about that, it would create a lot of
yeah.
anxiety and I would be more focused on like disappointment. Where, like,
Yeah.
right now, I'm just like, wow, I just need a break. Like, I just, an
Yeah.
image came to mind of a time where we were just like in Cabo and we didn't plan a ton of things and like we just weren't going busy trying to sightsee or do anything. It was just like sitting and the wind is blowing and it was
Yeah.
just like like that release,
Yeah.
like um
Yeah.
that
Yeah. I'm
I need
curious
to
that,
figure out a way to like
yeah.
have that happen even if it's not at the beach. Like that's kind of what was coming up, like, oh,
Yeah.
you really need to find a space for yourself
Mm,
to just do nothing.
yeah. And I'm going to bring attention because when we're doing like working with the body, right? What I do during this is I track the body, right? So I'm watching just
Mm,
these subtle shifts that might be happening that maybe you might not notice, right? And so I saw your hand kind of like cupped over your heart. And so I want to, yeah, I see your
mm.
face of like, "Mhm,
Yeah, I realized
yeah,
that I was like,
yeah.
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 Mhm.
And so I actually want to invite you to do that, right? This is again where we just get silly with the body and just see what happens. So I want to invite, if
Mm.
it's always an
I think
invitation,
that.
never, yeah, it's never an
Mm.
expectation. It's always what feels okay enough to you. And let's just sit there for a moment, right? And just see, what is it that we're even noticing in this area? What does it feel like for you? Yeah.
It's really just a lot of sadness and grief.
Yeah. Okay. Let's just stay with that for a moment. Okay. This is where I'm not going to have you talk about it. I'm just going to have you sense into it for a moment. And this is where I'll check in and say, are we okay enough to just sit with that sensation for just a moment? And you're
Yeah.
always allowed to, yeah. Okay. Perfect. Yeah. And let's just sit with that. Right, just noticing this sadness, this grief, and letting ourselves just get a little curious of like, God, does this grief, does this sadness, does it have a color? Or maybe there's a shape or a sensation that becomes a little bit more present as we bring our awareness to this area of your chest. Mhm. Yeah, I see a nice breath there, which is beautiful. That's a great sign.
Not really seeing a color that there is maybe like, I don't
Yeah.
know, a circle keeps coming up
Yeah. Circle. Amazing.
and
Mm.
I'm noticing kind of like my stomach is kind of gets a little uneasy, just like,
Yeah.
you know, it's,
Yeah. Hmm.
I think
Yeah.
that's where there's like some nervous anxiety
Yeah.
about like not having the answers, like
Mm.
not like
Yeah.
there's so many different things going on and how to know like what is the right thing to do in this situation.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah. Yeah. So let's just take a moment and just notice that circle and just sit with that and get just a little curious about it of like, yeah, what happens if we kind of explore the outer edges of the circle, right? And like what that's like. Knowing that there's no right or wrong answer. And this is just a place where we just explore, just following the
I, f-
body's cues. Yeah, go ahead.
I feel like this circle, it's like I'm trapped in it, like there's no exit.
Mm,
Like it's like,
yeah. Per
and
yeah.
it feels like it's
Yeah,
kind
I
of
saw you.
hopeless,
Mm,
like
yeah.
like
Yeah.
wow, it feels like I can't get off of this. Um,
Mm, yeah.
like even when I make a move or I try to do something, it's like I'm still over the past 6 months reliving the same thing over and over, even if I respond or do something different and
Yeah.
feeling really frustrated. Like I just want to like bust out of the circle. Like I'm done.
Yeah, I
Like,
love that movement with your hands. So we're going to explore that if that feels okay, right? Like I saw you, and even when you were explaining it, I saw you kind of swaying in this area. And
mhm,
just now it was very like, I want to just bust. So I want you to just to let that happen with your hands, like almost just slow them down and just feel what it's like for them to just become open, right? Just following that impulse that your body just provided for us, showed us, right? And just
mhm.
seeing what that feels like for you. Hmm. Yeah, and I want you to slow it down. Like we'll do it really slow. I say sometimes like through honey, just seeing what happens, what we notice, the sensation. Yeah, and just how that feels.
Well,
Yeah,
it's
what do
weird.
you yeah.
My palms of my hands are like tingly where it's like, and it's kind of
Beautiful.
hard to slow it down because I just want to be like,
Yeah.
I'm done. Like,
Yeah, so that's
like
amazing when
slowing
we're
is like,
yeah. Yeah, so we're gonna do it again because that's an amazing sign. So when we're feeling like tingling like that, oftentimes what it's telling me is our body's trying to discharge some stuff that feels stuck. Okay, so it's usually what that means. So we're just gonna see. We're just gonna play around and just see. And I know it feels uncomfortable. This is where we show the body, is it pain or is it discomfort, right? Because we can handle the discomfort, even though sometimes our body classifies it as pain, right? And it's like, no,
hmm
I have to do it faster. I have to, right? I have to, versus can I just show
hmm
myself what it's like for me to just slow down?
mm
Okay.
mm
And this is
Okay.
again where I'll constantly ask, like, yeah, do we feel okay enough?
Yes,
Okay. Does that sound okay?
it does. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so we're gonna do it one last time and just kind of see, just see what happens. Perfect. And we'll just do it nice and slow. Amazing. Maybe even letting the grip of the hands slowly become open too, if that feels okay. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. Hmm. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. What is that like? I'm seeing some nice
It was
breath.
actually
Yeah.
easier. It was actually
Yeah.
easier when I had decided, like, okay, and it, this is so strange because, like, I've never done one of these exercises before, but it's
Yeah.
like, I guess what I realized as I was doing it slowly
Mm,
is that I'm still breaking out of the circle. It's
yeah,
just going slow and
yeah,
like not assigning that the slowness of it isn't actually breaking out of it.
mm,
Like I'm not actually trapped in the circle,
mm,
but I don't have to go and bust it open right this minute. Like it just felt like, okay, you, these steps aren't like perpetual. It's,
mm,
that's the way you were perceiving it. But those steps are just slow steps. And it's like you're getting closer and
mm,
closer. And that it will, like, you will get out of this cycle. Because that's what I feel like the
mm.
cycle is what the circle represents.
Yeah, yeah. We're going to take a moment and we're just going to reorient. We're going to reorient again. We're going to feel our feet planted again and just see how that lands us. Yeah. So I want you to do the same thing that we did before. Just starting at one side of the room and just scanning. And again, just seeing where your eyes want to land, looking for something that brings you just these feelings of pleasure. And it can be where we started, it can be somewhere else. Just noticing our surroundings, the room, seeing what looks different. Just let me know when you've kind of just landed on that thing again, wherever, whatever that is.
So it doesn't feel so like narrow, like
Yeah.
where I was just like really focusing in on like this. I need to be sitting on the beach, just like the wind blowing through my hair. I'm now like seeing all of the
Mm,
things and like, oh, okay, you're, those things are all going to happen. Like, I don't know.
mm,
It's just more of a,
yeah.
even just maybe that exercise brought some of the calm of that
Mm,
beach and like that
yeah.
memory, like to right
Yeah.
now. And so I can look outside of this little circle and see things
Mm,
in a bigger perspective, like that expansion.
yeah. Amazing, and I love that you did that, and this is where we can do things with the body, right? Where sometimes when we're in a particular state, you spoke about being so zoomed in, right? I always like to use my hand when I'm like on with a client and I'll bring it really, really like close and be like, when I do this, it's like you don't see what else is like out in the room
Hmm.
versus when I can really zoom you back, right? It's when we work with the nervous system, it's about not being so hyper fixated. It's learning how to zoom out on our experience so we can
Hmm.
recognize choice. Right. And so it was so beautiful
Yes.
that you were able to just so organically do that of like in such a quick time. That's amazing. Of being able to just recognize because there are these feelings of like this perception. I'm stuck in the circle. And as you were able to like explore of like, oh wait, hold on, like there's other ways, right? So I
Hmm.
love that, and thank you so much for letting me do that with you, because I know sometimes it's vulnerable to do these things, especially when you have an audience that's watching, right, or listening. So thank you.
Well, I think it's so powerful when people can have a visual of an experience, because I know even when I was like, oh, I've got to know more about what is somatic experience. I'm like, oh, I do this kind of thing a little bit
Yeah,
organically with my clients, or in using mindfulness and grounding practices and breathing techniques and the body awareness and all of that. So I just thought it would be just like when we're talking about trauma, and we just take for granted sometimes, like, that people
yeah,
know what we're talking about, but
yeah,
that taking it for granted keeps people
yeah.
stuck, because it's like in
Hmm.
the hospital when we use our abbreviations and things like that, you go out to the outside world and they're like, you're speaking
We
a totally
forget.
different language.
Yes.
But with story and with
Yeah,
demonstration, people can have a greater understanding. And so I hope that's what people did. I want people to know, this, just like you, I mean, I am in my 7th year of doing this work.
yeah,
So the fact that I was able to maybe access it more quickly
yeah.
should not be seen as like, oh, I'm doing it wrong if I can't get there or if it doesn't
No.
make sense. Because in the beginning, I was doing mindfulness and I was like, I don't think I'm getting anything from this. Like, I don't even know.
Yeah.
Like, but
Yeah.
I was consistent.
Yes.
And over time, I would start recognizing the benefit because I'd notice in my body. It wasn't even like that I was living a totally different life, but I was like, whoa, I
Yeah.
responded totally different to that person,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. Yes, I always like to explain it as the fact of it's we're learning a different language, even though it sounds silly and we're like, I've had my body forever, but we've not communicated in that way. So just as if you were learning a different language, right? It takes time and
Mhm.
and committing to it and showing up consistently like you were speaking about. And sometimes, right, if you're new to this work and you've not done even mindfulness before, something really amazing to do is just as you're navigating through your day, like once an hour, just pausing and
Mm,
doing like a quick body scan, right? Just checking in of
right.
like, yeah, where are there things that feel easy for me to sit with, things that feel pleasurable for me to notice? Maybe it's your feet on the ground and rubbing your feet on the rug. Maybe it's noticing the support of the chair, right? And so it's
Mhm.
starting to get familiar with what it is that's even going on, because so often we're in autopilot. And so when we can pause and check in, especially in the beginning, I still do this today, we get more and more and more familiar with what's showing up.
Oh, I think that's such a great recommendation as a first
Yeah.
place to
Yes.
start. Um, I would say that. I would say, doing some guided mindfulness, just because it does help you to kind of calm, regulate. It's something that you can find online all over the place that helps you. But it's really impactful if you can do this with another person. And that's what's really
Yeah.
valuable about coaching, right? We talked about this in the episode um, part 2, where we were talking about trauma and how, trauma happens because you weren't able to process something, you didn't have the
Mm.
support you needed. So trauma happens in relationships, in community, and so it has to really be healed there.
Yeah.
You need to be able to be seen, known, heard, validated,
Mhm.
because, and a lot of times we talked about compassion too. Sometimes I know for me, there was so much critical, negative self talk. I had very little compassion for myself, that
Yeah.
by having that domestic abuse advocate or being in some recovery groups,
Mhm.
people were able to give me compassion
Yes.
that I wasn't even capable of doing. But
Mhm.
then I started learning, like, "Oh, I can give this to someone else. I can give this to me."
Yeah.
And it just made the recovery process that much faster. And so I
Yes.
would encourage people to, like your Facebook group, even just like
Yeah.
take one step to get into community. So we kind
Mhm.
of talked about the 3 foundational pillars of the coaching practice that I've built, and that's curiosity, compassion, and community, because you need all of those things to help remain regulated. Because remember, you were talking about your parents and their dysregulation,
Mhm.
it impacted your nervous system.
Oh,
And so when you can
100%.
get into a community of people who are learning to regulate,
Yeah.
you're co-regulating with someone, which
Mhm.
is what you were able to do with me as we walked through this
Yeah.
scenario. So thank you for walking us through. I hope that people will reach out to you, that they'll follow along in what you're doing, because what you share and your vulnerability, allowing people to see that they're not alone, is so powerful. So, again, remind us where our listeners, viewers can find you.
Yes, you can find me on Facebook. So my name is it's Tiffany Homan, or my Facebook community group, which is Breaking Free with Tiffany Homan Coaching. And on Instagram, I am just Tiffany Homan Coaching.
Amazing. Well, you are making such an impact in the
Thank
lives of
you.
others. And this series is going to bring so much freedom. I know, like breaking free, this is like first steps, and then
Yeah.
encouraging people to get into community, get a coach or somebody that can kind of walk alongside of you as you're doing this work. It's so helpful. And so please share this episode with those who are struggling. This is something that you can learn to do to be better for your friends, for your children. If you start integrating some of these things when you're engaging with others, you are going to be an amazing asset in their life to help them break free. So I just encourage you to continue to learn for yourself, so that even if you're not struggling, that you can come alongside and help someone who is. And so follow our Facebook, our Instagram, our TikTok. We have so many different resources to be able to encourage you. And like Tiffany said, you never know. You saw a TikTok and it really helped you change your life.
Mhm.
So share away. We're so grateful to have you in our community. Let us know. Give us a comment if this was helpful for you. Have a great week. We'll see you next Friday with another story,
Bye,
more
guys.
techniques, help you become better.